So my main research line is about exploring poorly known areas of the Amazon, mostly the Amazon forest, tropical forest. So what I do is I go there, I look for amphibians and reptiles in places where almost nobody has been before or nobody has been before, and then I use those specimens to do different kinds of studies. For example, natural history, because you always discover new behaviors, new reproductive modes, new kinds of acoustic behaviors like calls, for example. I also use those specimens many of them represent new species. I describe new species, and then I study their evolutionary relationships. Basically, I use DNA and anatomy to try to understand their position in the tree of life. And then once we know that, we can do other kind of inferences, like about how their shape and form evolve in relation to, for example, the habitats where they live. And also we try to reconstruct the history of their distribution, so how they got to where they live now. For example, how some frogs got to live at 4,000 meters in grasslands when their closest relatives live in the Amazon lowland, for example. It's a big change from being at low altitude in a very hot tropical climate to going up to 4,000 meters to a very cold environment where there are no trees, only grassland. Those kind of things. And we study what are the anatomical changes that happen when these frogs got to these habitats, all the other way around, how certain traits allow them to get to these habitats. But to do that, because we are working on very poorly known regions, if you're working in the US or in Europe, where the basic infrastructural work has been done, like we know what the species there are and what are their phylogenetics, evolutionary relationships, then you have that infrastructure that allows you to go farther. But in this case, because we're working in places where, I'm going to Peru in 2016, to a place where nobody has been before, and where we expect to find a lot of new species. So the first step is to classify those species, make sure that they are new or not, and then sequence their DNA, study their morphology, and see what their position is. And then we can ask other questions, like how they got where they are, why they look how they look, why they behave how they behave. Is that because they are related to something else, because of the habitat, and so on, these kind of evolutionary questions. And also it's important the part of exploration, because you know that in many areas the habitat destruction is going so fast that it has already happened that places that 20 years ago were pristine, now they are gone, and nobody was there collecting and studying anything. So
it's kind of a missing link almost.
Yeah, it's basically we are killing our possibilities of understanding life in the planet. And for many people this is a completely useless question, but for people like us it is not. No? For aesthetic, intellectual, practical reasons, we want to know, and